All right. What's up, everybody? I'm going to get right into it because I am a bit behind today. So I'll start off quickly with the disclaimer. Disclaimer, I am not a financial advisor. Nothing in this video is financial advice or a recommendation to buy or sell any derivative. All content is for informational and educational purposes only, based on personal opinions and experiences. Trading futures, options, and other financial instruments involves substantial risk of loss and is not suitable for all investors. You can lose more than your initial investment, so always do your own research and consult with a licensed financial professional before making any trading decisions. So there's the disclaimer, so now we'll move right to news. Got a bit of a stuffy nose, so I sound a bit off. Nothing really on the news today. Today's kind of like a half holiday because the Euro session was closed for Easter Monday. So, yeah. Anyways, though, there's not any news to really pay attention to today. Maybe the bill auctions, but it's usually not market moving. So, next, obviously, is the pre-market sheet. So let's go there. I'll quickly summarize. So no one-time framing in CL. You've initiated one-time framing higher on the weekly and the daily, but you haven't sort of broken that second bar for it to go. So it's not technically one-time framing yet, but if you break prior week's high, this high here, then you'll be one-time framing higher on the weekly and the daily. So that's worth noting. So I said we're opening in an imbalance condition. It wasn't a small gap when I opened, but either way, there's not much down here. We've got these gap with the singles. Value has been shifting higher. The swing low is still weak. It's got a weak low. Like I said, no one time framing. Value area range is expanding. We've had a couple days with gaps that didn't get closed, but overall we're doing pretty good at just overlapping and just moving things higher and like making this sort of like a composite type, adding volume as we go. So that's good to see. Yeah, and then yesterday was a normal day, Friday, normal variation day. We closed higher than we opened, and we got through that prior week's high, last week's or 2 weeks ago's high or whatever, on Friday, which took us all week to do that pretty much. So going through our key levels quickly, we've got a lot above us and not so much below us, but we've got singles, we've got overnight high, we've got prior week settle, we've got prior week's high, then we've got naked settles and VPOCs here, and as well as a gap right here. And we've got yesterday's high as well, if I didn't mention that. And potentially we've got yesterday's low that's going to be above us as well, depending on where we open. Overnight low below us, we've got overnight low. We've got yesterday's low potentially. We've got the prior day's value area, which I marked down as 61.97 down to 61.60. So this sort of range here in between these stock zones where the naked VPOC is. And then we've got these naked settles from that same day, and then a bit more below us is like an extended target. And we've also got the 5-day VPOC here. I may switch it back to a weekly. I don't think 5 really makes sense, but I need to see how it gets calculated, I guess. But yeah, so that's the pre-market sheet. So we'll go back to the TPO. So I'll say, like, since I'm going to be actually uploading these, I'll say, like, I use TPOs a lot. I'm probably not going to have any viewership for the first while at least, so, but I will say now, like, I'd recommend if you watch my videos to understand how a TPO works, and maybe I'll do a video trying to explain it as best as I can because I use it a lot for my general planning. Alright, my pen is not working here for whatever reason. So let me just restart it. Sorry. Okay, sorry about that. The pen should work now. Perfect. Yeah, just finishing off what I was saying earlier. I use TPOs a lot, especially for like the broader prep, and it's not that complicated, but it's a good value metric, and it's good to see, I guess, sort of how the auction is flowing in my eyes, at least. So, um, maybe in the future, but I'll reference it now that I'll probably, um, if you don't understand it, it will be harder to understand this portion of the prep. Uh, but anyway, so we'll get into it. So, yeah, so this was Friday. We opened in a gap from Thursday's session. We sort of opened and we sort of chopped around here for a bit, and then it sort of propelled itself higher before finding some value here and just poking the high. This is a really weak high here and an alright low. Um, and we've also got the singles that sort of splits the profiles. This bottom profile is definitely much worse than this top profile. Um, but yeah, we've got singles splitting the two, so we're opening near the lows. And so, because we've sort of been on a trend higher, we've sort of just been making our way higher, making our way. Um, we could see just some fill up, right? Like a sort of sideways day that just tries to fill in some things, especially because the Euro session was closed this morning. I wouldn't be surprised if we see maybe a little chop downwards. Maybe we close the rest of this gap. Uh, Maybe find some support in the value area, starts making its way higher, comes in, starts filling up these singles, and makes its way back lower, maybe goes for settle, potentially fails if it's more choppy, and then, sort of closes it somewhere in yesterday's profile. That's definitely a scenario I see that could happen today. Um, because it's Monday and it's kind of an off day, I would say lean less for a more directional day. But going from 62.50 down to check here is quite a bit of range. That's almost a point, maybe a bit less, depending on where you test in this value area. So it could sort of come back down and then sort of propel off if buyers come in um, to move higher. If we get below yesterday's value area, then I would assume that there's probably a bigger short move in play. Um, this gap was closed, right? Yeah, this gap was closed. I thought there was an older gap that we had missed as well, but I guess not. But yeah, if we can get below Thursday's value area, which is untested, and you've got the naked settle and VPUC there, then we could be going for a bigger move lower. Maybe just for the day, maybe for, a couple days, but that'll be an important test if this, because this is a nice belly, right? There was lots of trade here, and so anyone who's still in positions from here is likely going to want to defend or reload, right? So buyers will likely be coming back in because you're coming from below. Buyers buying, 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 which could lead to the chop higher. So if it blows right through it and then potentially tests from below and holds, that could be an important sign for me that this buy move is done for now. Right. So, yeah, that's pretty much the broad overview for me for the TPO. Like I said, there's still all this poor structure below us at this swing low, as well as at yesterday's high up here. You've got old prior week's high from March. You've got a couple of them in here. And then you've also got this super weak high and settle. So we could easily make our way back higher today too, right? Like we could easily see something like that. potentially even without a pullback that just sort of starts moving higher, gets settled, potentially get a pullback at some point that then continues higher. But like I said, leaning less so towards a more straight directional day, just because it's kind of like a half holiday. Like volume's all right. Volume's pretty much normal. Maybe it's a bit less, but it's not terrible. So we could see some movement. I'm just saying, maybe not, a trend day kind of thing, right? Something like that. But so now this is the 30-minute profile. These are just 30-minute bars. So it's similar to the TPO, just not all squished together, I guess. I usually just look at this to go through any overnight action. So as you can see, decent belly here in the overnight. So this area ahead of the singles could be important. I'll usually box it out like that. And if I go like this, wait, what was the button? VB, B, Shift B, no, Shift R, no. Anyway, I have a support resistance line. I'll put it in after. It's not important for you guys. But yeah, so this area could end up being some defense because there's some volume here again. Sort of same thing. People showed interest here, and so you can assume that there's going to be interest there again once we get back to it, kind of thing. So it could take some work for buyers to get through this. But if they get through this and they close the singles, then likely it could be a lean for higher, right? For continuation higher, and vice versa. If we can't get above it and we spill lower, then, if we haven't gotten overnight low or anything like that, then yeah, it could be a lean to continue lower. So yeah, overnight low will be important. That just below, this overnight value area will be important. Will be key, as well as just below overnight low, the value area from Friday. It's sort of in between these two stock zones, where these naked VPOCs are. So this area will be an important test. This area will be an important test. And then obviously we've got yesterday's high and low, which could be important, but because we already broke yesterday's low in the overnight session, I think that one, yesterday's low at least, may not be that important. So you may use overnight low for that gauge kind of thing. And then obviously the singles and settle. There's a bunch of stuff to fix up, as well as some stats that we could get if we wanted to. And so I'd say, most generally speaking, yeah, it's sort of like if you're imagining we're trading in between this and this, whichever one we can stay above or below first likely determines a potential bias. But again, could end up just being weakness from both sides because of the lack of volume and liquidity. We could see something like this where you just chop around, come back higher. You get some decent rotations, but really it doesn't accomplish much, kind of thing, And then the main things would be you close this old gap, and then you covered up the singles. Potentially, if it has the force and the energy, fix up the high, yesterday's high, but it's pretty far away. That's like 2 points away or 1.5 points away, so we'll see. But yeah, 14 minutes here, so I'm going to get to drawing my scenarios because I started a bit late today. So I'll get the overnight session in there like this. Make sure value area is in there. And then make sure, what the fuck? 1 second again. Sorry about that. For some reason, my volume profiles were gone. I don't know why. But yeah, so we'll go through our key levels first. Um, so we've got this area, obviously. Actually, let me do this quickly. There, we've got overnight low. We've got this overnight value area. We've got singles. We've got overnight high. We've got settle. And we've got prior week's high. Settle. Overnight high. Singles. Overnight value area. Overnight low. And prior days value area from Thursday. So I don't draw my scenarios too specifically, but I'll go over them one more time. So, I mean, in a more bullish scenario, if we were to have a more bullish day today, like I said, the main thing we'd want to see would be, I mean, ideally you hold overnight low, so you don't break overnight low. And then, and then you move higher and you are able to break through this overnight value area. If you can get a clean break of this overnight value area and potentially come back below, do a little pullback to finish up the rest of the singles close, that's clearly bullish in my eyes. And then, I mean, obviously, next you've got overnight high and settle up here if it could get to it. And then lastly, the highest one would be prior week's high. And then above that, it's just extended targets, singles, settles, that kind of thing. But that's a pretty bullish day, and there's lots of resistance points. The key one being here. If you can't stay above, you revert lower. Same as overnight high will be key. And then same as settle and yesterday's high. All of those areas, sellers will likely defend. Whether or not they win, we don't know. But I think all three of those places would be valid to look and watch for a reaction and a entrance from the other side, I guess, or more aggressiveness from the other side. So we'll be watching that. And then bearish is pretty simple. Like, if we get below yesterday's value area or Thursday's value area, so we move lower, if we can stay below overnight low, that's going to be important. Again, sort of clean break. That'll be an important test for the test of this value area. If we come down and we test this value area, this is the only sort of key support I'm looking at. And then below here, it's just like, it's really just zone to zone. Like, we've been here earlier last week. And so there's Wednesday's value area, which would be the next area I'd look for potential interest. But, yeah, that'd be pretty much it. I'd really just be zone to zone down here. And like I said, we definitely have the yellow scenario where we sort of come down, check the value area, come back higher, and start covering up some of these singles if we can. So kind of messy. I didn't give myself enough space, but yeah. And then, I mean, obviously the key support for me on the low side would be this value area. Anywhere in that value area, because it's a nice belly, right? So yeah, we've also got the gap from Friday. It's small below us, but everything below here, prior high. Everything above here, prior high, up to the low. So this small area, from this blue line here, where it says prior high, to this purple line, where it says IB low, This is an old gap. It's small, but that'll likely get filled in today. But because we're opening right there, I don't know how significant that's gonna be. So let me just, for myself, take a picture of these. All right. So I saved it for myself. So that's gonna be it for today. So kind of rambled on today. It is Monday though, so I'll give myself the benefit of the doubt. But I'll end this quick. So that's the plan for today. And yeah, I will be back with a new video tonight. I'll do a trade review tonight. After end of day, I'll come back and show what trades I took, if I took any, based off of my plans. So I'll be back for then.